did you always feel like I shouldn't be here, or I'm not supposed to dress like this? Did you always feel like that was something wrong?
Yes, from a very young age. I don't think I fully understood it until I was about 15 years old. I just had this emptiness, like an empty, I don't belong here feeling. And I couldn't really make any friends. And there's a lot of cliques in the Amish, like the girls their own age would stick together during church service or on Sundays. On Sundays was mainly our day to relax and or go see friends if we wanted to. Mm. But to go see friends, you had to hitch up horse and buggy and drive 5 to 10 to 12 miles down the road, and that takes several hours. So I didn't really go see friends, and I always felt like they looked so happy, so like they had something to look forward to in life. And me, I felt so alone and wondering what's wrong with me. Why do I feel like I am the black sheep of the family? That was at 15 years old. So, and I was a little bit more of a rebel, but that was because I was searching for something and I didn't know which way to go, what to do. And one day, have you read my book?
I've read parts of it, yes.
So I don't want to give it away completely, but the first chapter I wrote about this little ride that I went on in a vehicle. Mm-hmm. Basically, me and my siblings took a truck from on top of the hill. It was in a field. We took it for a ride. And during that time, I really wanted to leave the Amish, and I just blurted out to one of my sisters that I wanted to leave. And that was kind of the starting moment for me to realize, wow, I just said that out loud to somebody else. And I think I'm going to go ahead and try this. I'm going to see. During that trip is when I really decided I should just look into it and see if I can get away. And during that time, I was cleaning a house for the neighbor lady across the street. She was not Amish. And I hardly ever talked to her, but she would ask me questions and I would say yes or no, or, whatever words I could say to her. And I remember her asking me if I was ever going to leave the Amish, and I told her yes. And she said, okay, I'll help you. Like, she was so willing to help me. And we never really discussed it from there because I was only around 15, 16 years old. And I knew I had to be 18. So I thought that that was my ticket out. And I was trying to, in my head, build a scenario of how I can go to her house and stay there when I'm 18 years old without my family coming across the street and taking me back home. And I had determined that she probably would have to take me to some other state for me to live. But then right before I turned 17 years old, she suddenly died of a heart attack. Oh. And I was devastated. I thought, how am I going to get out now? I have there's nobody else that I can trust who's knowing this information that I wanted to leave. And those few years that I was thinking about and planning and trying to decide if that's how I'm going to do it, because Amish women are so secluded. There's not very many options for them to talk about to other people about how to do something. And leaving the Amish back then it was still very rare, and especially rare for women to leave. I had known only one other woman that had left before me. So it was terrifying, and I couldn't tell anybody except one of my sisters knew, but she didn't really believe that I was seriously going to leave. And so after she died, I came across a couple that was they would come to my parents' place to visit, and they were very close to my parents. So I wasn't sure if I could tell them that I wanted to leave, but I decided to take that risk. And I told them one day very quickly that I wanted to leave the Amish, and they immediately said, you can't do that because your parents had already told us that if any of their kids come to them and want to leave the Amish, they want to know about it.
Mm.
And with me, I couldn't verbally express, and I couldn't really show how terrified I was of them actually telling my parents. Because growing up, they don't teach Amish kids how to show emotion, and they teach them that it's not okay to show emotion. So I had suppressed emotions, and I couldn't verbally get it out what I needed to say to these people to not tell my parents. So I just kind of left it, and I was expecting any minute my dad becoming very angry and coming at me for wanting to leave Amish. Like every morning I would wake up with this expectation of my dad finding out, and it's going to be the end. Like there won't be any more planning. I'll probably live in the basement the rest of my life. I probably won't ever be able to leave the property without one of my parents with me. But it never happened. And several months had gone by, and I was like, okay, maybe my parents don't know. And one day I was out in the barn, and this couple came, and they brought some horse feed for their horse. They drove up to the barn. They saw me. They had a phone number written down on a piece of paper, and they asked me to come over to them where they were unloading, and they stuck this piece of paper in my hand, and it said, when you're ready to leave, call that number, and we can't know about it. So I stuck that piece of paper in my pocket, and I went on about my way. And they later told me that they had decided not to tell my parents because they could see how manipulative and verbally and mentally abusive my dad was to us kids and our mom. So they had some disagreements about how he presented himself, so they decided not to tell him. And even though they didn't tell me who this person was that I was supposedly gonna call, and I had some kind of relief, like, okay, I have a phone number. I was hiding a cell phone that somebody else had given me, and I didn't use it. It was a very old school track phone from Walmart. And I wouldn't use it because I didn't want to run down the battery. before, I leave. There was no way to charge it because we don't have electricity. So I was hiding it in the bedroom, and hiding a cell phone in my bedroom was the most terrifying thing. I was so scared somebody would find that phone. Like, nothing in my room was safe. Like, any minute my dad would just walk in. He wouldn't knock. He would just come upstairs, walk in to see what we were doing. It was very, I think it shouldn't be allowed that a parent does that, but what do I know? I'm not a parent. I probably wouldn't know what to do.
So were your parents ever physically violent and abusive as well?
I don't know. Yes and no. Like, my mom wasn't, but my dad was. He would call it more of like a punishment. He wouldn't. Like, I can remember some physical violence, but not enough to picture it or like put it together and know for sure, because I know that I've been hit I've gotten whippings before, or whoopings, whatever you call it, but I think that is part of raising children in the Amish community. Like, that is expected. Like, if you don't behave, you're going to get a whooping. I feel like he abused my mom, and I can't tell for sure if he was physically abusive, but she was crying a lot during my childhood. She would cry and cry and cry all the time. And I knew that it was because of my dad, but I didn't know why. I wouldn't ask her why, because I knew she wouldn't tell me. She just kind of kept silent and did the best she could, but it was very hard for her to see that she was crying. And my dad and I had a lot of issues. So my relationship with my dad was very strained, and I was so ready to get out of that. He was manipulative, controlling. He wouldn't work. He expected his kids to do all the work for him and bring in the income. And the same, like, he expected my mom to do the work too. So he was the only one that was kind of just sitting around smoking his pipe, and he was more concerned about himself than he was to make sure that us kids didn't go hungry. Or I remember many times during the wintertime we didn't have any food, but yet he had money to go buy cigarettes or cigars or tobacco for his pipe. And so, and he would often yell at us kids, especially me. He would tell me that I was worthless and good for nothing, and that I'm stupid, all kinds of terrible things that you should never say to a child. He would say those things to me, and it had really affected my life. Even after I left Amish, and once I learned how to deal with my past and try and heal from it, there's so much emotion that came out of me. It's taken years for me to heal and know that it's okay to become the person that I was supposed to be, and not constantly be scared that I'm doing something wrong. I used to try to please people and still worry that I wasn't good enough. And that has gotten me in some big trouble.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm so happy you're you're out. I'm so happy you're not living under those conditions anymore. And
Yeah.
and I would really love to hear about how you got out. I mean, how was that day for you when you actually got out?
That day still seems like just something that you would watch in a movie, and it's not real. After I got that phone number from those people, I had, I don't remember if I had that phone number already or if it was right before. There was at one point that I had decided, it was when I was 17, I had decided that I was not going to leave the Amish, that it's too stressful. It was putting a huge strain on me. I was getting very thin. I was pale. I wasn't eating. I was in constant pain. I had a headache all day, every day. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to leave. And I'm going to try to be this ladylike Amish person and do what I'm supposed to do, which is get a boyfriend, get baptized, get married, and have kids by the time I'm 19, 18, 19.
And just to clarify, I mean, how did they expect you to get a boyfriend? What was the, ritual around that part?
That's a long story. So they would, once you're 16 and a half, you're allowed to start dating. So on Sundays at church, after dark, probably around 7 or 8, is when all the young people around that are 16 and a half, and I don't know why they have to throw in that half mark, but from 16 and a half to 18, 19, 20, however old you are and not married, they would all get together, the guys and the girls, and they would sit around a table and sing hymns in German. And then after you're done singing, the guys would try to match up the girls with, let's say they pick out a guy and they say, okay, we want you to go on a date with Emma.
Mm.
And then they would come to me and say, we have this guy, we think you should date him. And they would kind of, they would insist on me, like I am supposed to say yes. So at this point, the guy would take me home. We weren't allowed to go on an actual date. I didn't know what that was until I left Amish, but their date was to take the girl home that evening from the singing and go upstairs to her room and either talk or go to sleep. That was considered the date. And the guy would get up around 4 or 5 in the morning. Let's say we get home at 12 midnight. We have 4 hours to talk and sleep before the guy has to get up and get out of the house before the family starts waking up.
Right. But the family knows.
No. Well, the parents, I'm sure the parents know because they know that that's how their dating rules are.
Right.
So the parents know that somebody's there.
But out of respect, you should still leave before they wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the guy isn't supposed to be seen by the rest of the family. Like my brothers and sisters wouldn't really, they aren't supposed to know. I don't know why it's a secret, but it is. They're not. And then outside of that date, that one, they do it every 2 weeks. They would do that type of date.
Every 2 weeks.
Once, if they start the date from that night from the singing, then the next date would switch to Saturday night if they continue on dating. Then it's Saturday nights instead of Sunday. And sometimes the first dates also start from if there isn't a singing and the girl is at home in her bed, all of a sudden you get these group of guys show up knocking on your bedroom door, asking you to have a date with whoever they picked out. Like they wake you up in the middle of the night and bring this guy to your room and tell you that you're supposed to have a date.
That seems like a weird kind of Tinder to me. I mean, that's a really weird dating app. Like a bunch of guys showing up. Well, we choose someone for you. This is the guy. And then you're supposed to either talk or sleep together for 4 hours. I mean, it's a weird game. But what did you talk about?
I had such horrible experiences that there was nothing to talk about. I was shy, and I can't remember even saying a word to anybody, except there was this one guy that they brought to me to have a date with him. And I had a feeling that he was going to get up and leave because, well, actually he did. And it was an embarrassment because as soon as the group of guys left, this guy got out of bed and left, and we didn't even have a date. And other people found out about it, like the guys that brought him to me, and like the young folks who do the singings, they knew that he had left. While they blamed me.
Mm.
They thought that something was wrong with me because he did that.
Yeah.
And it was very embarrassing, and I hated how I got blamed for something that I have no clue why he left. He didn't tell me. He just left. And then a couple of months later, they brought his brother to me, and I was determined to not let this guy leave. And I said something to the effects of, asking him to please not leave during the night until his time is up. That was like the only thing I ever said to somebody. At that point where I decided that I had decided not to leave, and I was gonna get married or try to get married and behave like I'm supposed to behave, or be this, essentially gonna make myself conform to their ways of living, and like truly trying it. Well, they brought a guy over soon after I had made that decision that I was gonna try and date a guy. And I was gonna say yes to him no matter what, because I wanted to get married. I wanted to give up leaving the Amish. So he asked me if he can continue seeing me, and I said yes. So he would come back every 2 weeks, and he would never say a word to me, and I would never say a word to him. We would just go to bed and sleep. And the next morning he would get up and leave. This was going on for about 2 months. The only question he ever asked me was, can I come back? And me saying yes. And then during those 2 months, every time he left, the next morning I would have the worst headache. Like it just felt like I can't live like this. Something is wrong with me. And I hated every part of those weekends where he would show up. Like I absolutely hated it. And here I was telling myself that I was going to marry this guy so I don't leave the Amish. But after 2 months, I finally got up the nerve to tell him not to come back. And he said, okay, and left. And after I had made that decision that I was not going to have him come back, I knew that I was going to leave the Amish. Like, there was just no way else around it. I was going to have to leave because I was so unhappy. I was so lost in my life. And I knew that there was something in me that told me that it'll happen.